Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of Secure the Seat Live. I'm so excited that you're here with us. Make sure that you go and ping somebody and make sure that they're watching with us. And we want to see how you're doing, how your weekend was inside the chat. Tell me how your weekend was. Where I am, it was 90 degrees in November. And so you already know that was a tambourine moment for me. It felt like summer in November. So it was really great. I am your host, MINDA HARTS. If this is your first time joining us on LinkedIn Live, we're just so happy that you're here. You're already family. And if it's, you're with the squad all the time, you're here every Monday, welcome back. We're happy that you're here. I have a friend and a mentor here with us today, Tara Jaye Frank. And so if you know that she is an equity consultant, she is an author, she is a waymaker, and we're going to learn more about what that means today. But we're going to talk about the changing face of leadership, because sometimes when we think of leaders, we have been conditioned to think that maybe that is a white male, but we know that we all have the capacity to lead, and we all are leaders, and we can activate that at any time, and we don't have to wait on our annual promotion. We don't have to wait for a one-on-one. We can all be leaders at any given time. And so you already know I got my tambourine ready because I know Tara is going to drop some gems. So let us know where you're chiming in from. So shout out to my friends on LinkedIn, and then those who are watching us on other platforms as well. So let's get into it. And I want to welcome my friend, Tara Jaye Frank. Hey, girl. Hey.
Hey, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for inviting me. I should have brought my own tambourine, but I'll
You know
just
what?
let you get it off.
Next season, I think I'm gonna send everybody their own tambourines, right? With Secure the Seat. Michael, write that down.
A branded tambourine. It sounds completely
Branded
appropriate to
tambourines.
me.
I love it. For those who may not be familiar with your work, Tara, would you please just tell everybody a little bit more about you?
Yeah, thank you. Tara Jaye Frank. So as you said, I'm an equity strategist and also author of the forthcoming book, The Waymakers, Clearing the Path to Workplace Equity with Competence and Confidence. And the way I simply describe it, honestly, is I spend most of my time with CEOs and their teams, getting a better feel for what their current company culture is, defining their preferred future, and then just building a bridge between those 2 points.
I love that. And we're going to drop your contact information in the chat. And that book is available on pre-order now. So make sure that you get that going so that you can be ready. And when it drops to your house, you'll have it in your business toolkit ready to go. But you mentioned, Tara, that you have a book coming out in May of next year, The Waymakers, Clearing the Path to Workplace Equity with Competence and Confidence. Why did you decide that we needed this book out in the world? Tell us a little bit more about that.
Thank you. Thank you for asking. It's interesting. We've all been, I've been at this for a few years now, right? Leadership development, culture work. But over the last 2 years, I think the culture, the climate for all of us has been so very, very different. And I always experience things on 2 levels. Like, one, I'm paying attention to what's happening in the moment with the people, right? How they're engaging, what their issues are, what their needs are. But I'm always also just observing, trying to kind of get the bigger story arc. And what I realized in these conversations with CEOs and their teams is that they all had 3 things in common. One, they all wanted to do the right thing. 2, they didn't know exactly what the right thing was. And 3, most of them felt a little bit insecure about diving into the work, right? They didn't know how, and they didn't want to mess up. They didn't want to face reputational risk. They were just afraid to get it wrong. And so I wrote the book for those people, honestly, right? For people who want to do better, who want to do more, to open the door to opportunity, but feel a little bit ill-equipped or maybe insecure about how.
I love that so much because at least from the work that I do, I hear a lot of leaders say, I want to be equitable, I want to be a great leader, but I don't know how, especially during times of, racial injustice or different things that you may not understand what's going on. And I think, to your point, there's a lot of people that want to do better, but they don't know what that looks like.
They really don't. And I have a lot of conversations, I'm sure you can appreciate this, where people say to me, especially people who have been marginalized, right? People who have been on the outside looking in, and they're kind of like, give me a break, Tara. These are CEOs, they're super successful. They have figured out lots of very difficult things. You can't tell me they don't know how to do this or can't figure it out. And what I say is, I am telling you, because I am in the rooms with them every single day, that they do not know exactly what to do and they are afraid to do it wrong. You can believe me or not, but I'm telling you, this is the reality.
That part. So let's dig in a little bit more. What is a waymaker and how can leaders become one? We were joking before the show a little bit, and I'm like, when I first heard that your book was coming out, I thought waymaker. It reminded me of that worship song, and we'll have to do a LinkedIn after dark to find out exactly how you came to that word, but it puts me in that vibe. But I'm curious to learn more about it, and I know our audience is too.
Yeah, thanks. So to me, a waymaker is a person with power and position. And of course, that's subjective, but a person with power and position who has a heart to make a way for someone who has been historically excluded, but doesn't know how. And so to me, having the heart to make a way is a really important part of this, right? Knowing that the playing field is not even, understanding that we don't all come to the table or to the situation with the same tools, with the same insight, with the same access, and wanting to play a role in leveling that playing field and opening that playing field, but just uncertain, right? Needs tools, need resources, et cetera. So that's what it's about. It's about opening that door to opportunity, removing the barriers in the way, and essentially ushering people through.
I love that a lot. So what you're saying is we all could potentially be a waymaker. Is that right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, think about it. We're all at different doors. Does that make sense? Like there's not just one door and one waymaker at that door. You can have a door to information. You can have a door to insight. You can have a door to encouragement, right? To self-love, self-acceptance. There are so many different keys that many of us have in our possession. And I believe that if each and every one of us was willing to share that key, to open the door to whatever riches we have available to us, that many of us would experience more of the joy, of the fulfillment, right? Of the true opportunity and potential that we have inside of us. So yeah, I believe anyone can be a waymaker.
Tambourine moment. Did you hear her? We we all can be a waymaker, and I love that you positioned it as there's various doors, right? It makes me think about Malcolm Gladwell when he talks about there's connectors, there's different people who you'd want to have to connect with, and I think that a lot of us sometimes don't see ourselves as leaders because we think we don't have the title or we don't have this or that, but we all have a door, right? That
Yes.
we can help usher in. I just love that so much. I'm seeing out in the chat that people are loving it too. And if you have questions for Tara, please drop them in the chat and we'll try to get to as many as we can. So I have to ask you, Tara, who are some waymakers for you? Maybe you could tell us a story of how people have done that for you. They've been a door.
Yeah, it's such a good question. And the beauty of it is once you start really asking people, who are your waymakers? You realize how many you've actually had in your life. And so, of course, which is probably true for many of us, my first waymakers were my parents. I describe my mother as giving me roots and my father as giving me wings. My mother was always practical, trying to help me understand the implications of any choices I might make. But my father literally believed I could do anything. I remember when I became editor for Dr. Maya Angelou when I was at Hallmark, and I was working with her really directly. I called my father to tell him, this is such a funny story to tell now, but I called him to tell him I was so excited. And what I really wanted was for him to be as excited about it as I was, right? He said, oh, that's nice. Did you get a promotion? I was like, not exactly, but did you hear what I said? He said, well, you're a better writer than she is anyway. I was super offended on her behalf, but that gives you a sense of my dad, meaning he always had a bar for me up here, even as I was trying to reach it. And then he would just lift it up higher. So huge waymaker there. In my professional career, I had my first manager who introduced me to everyone. I had the creative director of Everyday Cards, who insisted I succeed her. I found this out later. She's like, nope, I want Tara to succeed me. Very specific and pointed, which means when you're that declarative, everything kind of moves around, right, to make that happen behind the scenes. I had the first VP of writing an editorial who I ended up succeeding ultimately, who basically told me how things work behind the scenes. She made the unwritten written and the unspoken spoken, which is one of the big ways inside our workplaces we make a way for other people. So I've had many. I've been very fortunate. I've also had people who tried to be a barrier, but thankfully I had more Waymakers than I did way blockers.
I love those stories that you told. I'm going to put it to the chat. Who has been a waymaker for you? Because if you think about it, there's always somebody who's opened a door, done something, and it made me think about who's been a waymaker for me in various situations too.
Yeah, who has? Tell me one of your Waymakers.
Well, in my books, both Right Within and the memo, I mentioned this guy named Chuck, or Charles, and he was definitely a waymaker for me. When I was in my former life, I didn't know a lot of rules of engagement in corporate America, and a lot of people may not know this, but part of my job was to kind of smooth, is that the word you use? Potential donors and things like that. And so I'd have to go to these really fancy dinners. I'd go to people's, the top 3%, I'd be like asking them for money for different projects and different things like that. And it was very uncomfortable. And he really taught me how to finesse those situations and how to negotiate salaries and, just a lot of things that I didn't know that I could do, that I had the power to be a waymaker even for myself with that knowledge, that information. And so whenever I get a chance to say Chuck's name, I'm very thankful because he didn't look like the person that I thought would make a way for me.
Honestly, that is one of the most powerful things we can remember about those who have made a way for us, that they don't always look like us, or they don't always look like we think they might. But that's why I say it's a person who has a heart to make a way, because there's really no profile. There's no visible profile for that, right? It's something that's in here.
I love that. Yes, it's something that's in here. And again, I'm just like, I love that so much. And, I see it in the chat. A couple people are asking, Tara,
Yeah.
what if you meet someone who is a way blocker? A blocker? How do you navigate those situations when you just need somebody to make a way for you, but you're coming up against those barriers?
Yeah, this, I got to be honest with you. This is why I wrote the book, because you may or may not know, Minda, that I started my consultancy in leadership development. I started my consultancy helping people who had been blocked repeatedly, right, figure out how to get unblocked, how to work around it. And I realized, there's some really important work to be done for those way blockers. They need some development, right? Not necessarily us. They need the development. So what I will say to anyone who is being blocked is that it's really important for us to find a coalition of the willing. I use this term all the time because it's so important. You got to make sure that you have enough people in your corner who know you and you know them, that you can start to overcome some of these barriers that are erected. Because whether we like it or not, relationship still opens the door to opportunity. And without those relationships, broad enough relationships, varied enough relationships, it really can be hard to find a way around it. So waymakers, coincidentally, are the answer to overcoming way blockers.
I love that. Listen, we're going to drop Tara's information in the chat. Make sure that you pre-order a copy of the Waymakers, Clearing the Path to Workplace Equity with Competence and Confidence. Because listen, going into 2022, I hate to say it, I hate to be maybe a blocker for you right now, but the year's almost over, and we should be thinking about how we're going to make ways for others, how we want to make ways for ourselves. And one of the things that I love that you said, Tara, was sometimes we're so focused on our development, but really there are leaders in our lives that also need some development. So definitely let your companies know about this book, because that can be part of their leadership development as well. Yes. So listen, one to jump into, we could be talking about this all day because I'm seeing the chat is blowing up. I love that people are talking about their waymakers, teachers, different people who have been helpful to them. Um, but I want to jump into our bonus round, and then we'll see if we have time to take a couple more questions toward the end. But Tara, from being with me for a while now, is that I am a lover of grits and rap lyrics. And I don't, are you a grits eater? I believe that you
Okay,
might.
wait. Sugar or cheese and salt? I have to know. Grits, how?
How do you like your grits? That is the question of the day.
Well, I like my grits with cheese and salt.
Okay.
Are you
That's
a sugar grits person?
never, never.
Okay.
That's blasphemy. Blasphemy. I am. I love salt and butter. That's how I really, really love my grits. But I will accept cheese on them. I will accept shrimp. But I did make some grits yesterday because I was just sometimes you just need a bowl of grits, and
Yes.
so I had to make sure I had my butter and salt, sea salt ready to rock. But I'm glad to know that you are not. You do not put sugar in your grits because that's not being a waymaker for.
No, I don't understand it. And you know what? Honestly, I didn't say butter, but I meant butter because I put butter on everything. So to me, butter is kind of a default. Like it's just automatically there without me having to give voice to it.
Yes, butter's like seasoning salt.
Yeah.
You just it's there. You need it. We use it. All
Just
the
butter.
things. Curious what your a good bowl of grits goes good with a good rap lyric. What is your favorite rap lyric and why?
I knew you were going to ask me this. Okay. My favorite rap lyric is thinking of a master plan. Ain't nothing but sweat inside my hands. And the reason why it is my favorite rap lyric is because, first of all, I'm always thinking and I am always looking ahead. I was that person, even in my professional career, who was always 2, 3, 4, 5 years ahead of everything else. I would come up with the ideas. People would be like, we're not ready. I don't know if that's right. I don't know if people will want that. And then 3 years later, they were building it. And I would be like, well, there you go. So yes, that always spoke to me. I can relate.
That is a great one, and I think it's very apropos as we're thinking about closing out the year, going into a new one, thinking about those plans. I was just telling my big brother Stephen A. Hart, shout out to him. I was telling him last week what my goals. I was thinking of my master plans, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, hold me accountable to these, because sometimes when you tell people you trust what you want in your plan, they can also be a waymaker in ways that you may not know as well. So thank you for digging in that crate and pulling out that.
Yes, of course.
And I have Drake behind me just for support.
Yes,
So
I see him.
he's over my shoulder. He's the wind beneath my wing. Okay, that's
Oh my
the next thing is you already talked about being a waymaker and why that's so important. So I'm just curious, because we're all waymakers in the making, right? And some of us have definitely opened the door for other people for knowledge and information. But what is one way that people can make the workplace better than they found it?
I'm going to share this with you. It's honestly one of the most important ideas in the entire book, and that is to build bridges across difference. So get to know someone who is not like you, especially if they're on your team. I'm going to tell you why. I have this framework in the book basically called the affinity grid. And so it has affinity on the vertical axis and evidence on the horizontal axis. It basically says this: when you have someone on your team with whom you share a high affinity and you have high evidence of their work, of their contribution, meaning you know what they've done, what they're capable of, those people have the highest advantage in any workplace situation. The people who have the next highest advantage are those with whom you share a high affinity, even if you don't know what they've contributed. The next advantage group, right, is where you have high evidence of their capability, even if you don't have affinity. But if you don't know what they've contributed, if you don't know what their skills are, what their gifts are, and you do not share affinity with them, they have zero advantage on your team. So I always tell people you have got to get to know the people on your team in your division, right? With whom you do not share affinity. Because if you don't have evidence of their contribution or their skill, they are going to flail. So that is one of the most important things we can do. Get to know them. You may get to know their contribution. And if you spend enough time with them, you will find an area of affinity as well, right? Something that you have in common. It's the biggest thing.
That's huge. That all of that was a mic drop. You said something, and I wish I had my pen close by so that I could write it down. But you mentioned, if you could just repeat it again, it was something about a bridge. I just want people to
Yes.
hear that piece again, because as you go into the week, think about this.
We have to build bridges across difference. Build bridges across difference. Because look, if we don't do that, right, people who have been historically excluded, we are going to remain on the outside looking in. If people with the power and position don't do that, we are going to remain on the outside looking in. It ultimately benefits us that people build bridges across difference. And at the end of the day, we need to be ready to succeed in corporate America, but corporate America needs to be ready for us. That is why I do what I do, to get them ready for us.
Yes, yes. I love that. Building bridges across differences. And whew, that's just so important. And, I often think about, whenever I'm doing a talk, there's a line that I put out there. I ask people, who are you willing to be courageous for? Right. And when we're courageous, we're not only being courageous for ourselves, but somebody is a beneficiary of that. And I was thinking about, as you were talking about being a waymaker, building bridges, when we do that, someone is being a beneficiary of our making that way. And I just love it so much. Is there anything else you just want to share with us? Maybe a little sample of what people can get from the book, and we're going to drop that link in the chat too. But also make sure that you connect with Tara, because she does a lot of other great work. Hire her, support her, and we'll drop her information in there in the chat as well.
Yeah, thank you again for inviting me. I would say this, one of the things I talk about in the book is that anyone who wants to be a waymaker has to embrace 3 steps. The first is realism. You got to be honest with yourself about where you currently stand, what you know, what you don't know, the nature of your culture, what people are experiencing. The second is you have to take responsibility. This is not someone else's job. It is yours. It is not the job of your HR department or your chief diversity officer. And the second is that relationship piece. We've got to build these relationships across difference if we really want them to lead to more open doors, right? To more opportunity. So 3 things in the book, I break it all the way down. I talk about why we're stuck, I talk about how to get unstuck, I talk about the principles of a waymaker, how we clear the way, model for results, when it matters most that we show up. I honestly put it all in there because I want more people to make a way for more people, right? So we can fix this thing. Stop having the same conversation 20 years from now.
Listen, no, all jokes aside, I hope each of us will figure out how to make a way for somebody else this week and going on. As you're thinking about your master plan, think about how to include other people in that plan that you can make a way for as well. And I can't wait to see this book out in the world, because there's so many leaders, managers, people working in these workplaces that need to be moving out the way and making a way.
Yes, all of that, all of those things you said.
I love that so much. I hope you don't mind me doing this, Tara, but I just want to thank you just for who you are and how you make ways for me, for others. I truly appreciate your leadership. Last week, I did this thing on Twitter where I was giving out 3 grants to business owners who are just starting, kind of struggling, wanting to like do something, make a way for themselves, but needing some help. And hundreds of people like put their business in there. And Tara said, let me add to that pot of money. And we were, with her and 2 other folks, we were able to give away $9,000 last week, which was to small businesses who need like trademarking, need a new website, just needing some help. There was one woman who sent me a message, Tara, and she does senior pictures for those students who don't have the finances to be able to get their senior pictures, right? And you don't sometimes think about how important that is for a senior, right, to have those pictures. And she does this for her community, and she said she booked the shoot not having the money, and then she got chosen by our collective, and now those students can get their senior picture. So thank you for making a way, just spontaneously, and I just want to say thank you to you for that. And so, any final thoughts before we close out this week's episode?
No, I'm just grateful. Thank you, Minda, for being you and for having the idea and for continuing to pour into people. Each and every one of us, I think, who follows you and has read your books and been part of your universe at this point, which is increasingly expanding, and it's beautiful to see. I think is continually inspired by you and your relentless pursuit, right, of equity and just internal peace and wellness and honor and mutual respect. And I love being adjacent to you. It's been amazing. And everybody, please buy the book. I would appreciate that. Pre-orders matter. Minda knows this. Pre-orders matter. I appreciate your support and look forward to making a way with all of you.
Yeah, so we're going to drop that link. Thank you so much. Drop it in the link or in the chat so that we have that. Mike, who is behind the scenes, always holding us down. Thank you for helping us, helping your sister make a way on Mondays at so, again, I just want to thank each of you. You could spend your mornings or afternoons any kind of way, and we appreciate you spending your Monday with us. Join us next week. Share this out to people who need to know how to make a way, that they can make a way. As Tara mentioned, sometimes people feel stuck and they don't feel like they can do it, and they can. So let them know. And when you're thinking about booking speakers and bringing folks in for, make sure that you pass along Tara's information. And again, it's there in the chat. Thank you so much, Tara. Always good to see you.
You
and
too.
I can't wait to see you in real life one of these days.
Oh, amen to that. Yes. Yes. I'll have to bring some grits with me.
Yes, you bring it. I'll bring the salt. Okay.
Sounds good.
But everybody have a great rest of your week and keep securing your seat.
Thanks, everyone.